let's bring in another coach, fresh off of his big victory in Ireland over Florida State, the head coach of Georgia Tech football, Brent Key, here on the program. Good to meet you, Coach. How are you, sir?
Hey, what's going on? Doing well.
Yeah, I bet you are. You jet lagged? You jet lagged right now? What do you got?
No, not at all. We got a game Saturday, so a lot of work to do.
Okay, so you're already locked in. So let me just discuss, since we've never chatted, we've never met before. You're coaching for your alma mater. What is that like for you, Coach?
Yeah, it's special, say the least. Anytime you go through an experience in your life and it helps to shape you and make you into who you are, it's important. It's etched into really your background and into your DNA. That's what Georgia Tech is to me. It's given me a lot of the opportunities I've had in my life. But I think most importantly, it taught me how to work hard. It taught me how to figure things out. It taught me how to solve problems. Did a lot of the things in my life to allow me to have some of the experiences I've had. So the opportunity to lead this program and lead these young men in their day-to-day journey through Georgia Tech, not only as a football player, but also as for their life after football, it's important, and to be able to help them go through the day-to-day process of it.
George OLeary is your guy, right? Goes without saying. George OLeary is your coach, and then he's the one who brought you into coaching back in the day.
I tell you what, now, I mean, 1996. Well, met him in 95.
Yep.
So I came here in 96, played for 5 years, GA'd for him, coached. So, I mean, you're talking, better part of probably half my life I've spent with Coach OLeary.
And then, so why did you want to get into coaching back in the day for yourself? What do you think?
Probably everybody has all these really cool things they say about coaching, and to be honest, I love playing football. I wasn't good enough to continue to play in the NFL, and I wanted to be a part of it. But there was a time in my life after being a GA for a year and a half, and I said, man, I don't want to do this. I'm going to go work in the real world. I've got a Georgia Tech degree.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go make money. I'm going to go make some money out there and start, get my own apartment by myself. And went and worked in the commercial real estate world here in Atlanta for a little bit of time. And it took me about 6 weeks in that before I realized that I am a football coach. I missed it a lot.
You realized you try to leave your lane and you got back in the lane. Is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes it takes something else to make you realize how much you really love something.
Right, and then you went with George to UCF. Is that what happened?
Yeah, went to UCF. We were there really from the time it was in the MAC all the way up until MAC, the Conference USA, brief year in Big East and the AAC, and just to see that place grow from what it was to what it is now. To know we had such an imprint, but to see the way that Coach OLeary worked every day, and you've heard the saying, act as if, and that's the way he was every day. It was act as if, and it wasn't, well, we don't have an indoor, we don't have practice fields. It was, all right, when are we going to get them? Here's what we're going to do. In recruiting, it was never, you want to get your butt chewed off now. You say something like, well, he's a national recruit, or the three big schools in the state are recruiting him. That was the easiest way in the world to get your butt tore up in a meeting. So it was constantly pushing the envelope and pushing to be better and better. And that's where I think I've learned a lot of the lessons that have helped us today.
How'd you wind up on Nick Saban's radar screen, Brent?
So in 2009, we had a common opponent. We played Texas during the season. They were playing them in the national championship game.
Yeah.
Several people on the staff there I knew, and I went up there. I'm from Birmingham, and we were actually at home for Christmas, and I'd gone down to Tuscaloosa and ended up sitting in the O-line room with those guys and with Joe Pendry. And Coach Pendry ended up, really became a mentor to me at that point, with offensive line play and offensive football, and knew several other people on the staff there. One thing leads to another. And we it was 2015 when when Coach OLeary retired down at UCF, and everyone moved on, and I ended up heading to Tuscaloosa.
And what did you glean from your years being in Nick Saban's coaching staff, Coach?
Well, I think you take a master's in coaching football, and you end up leaving there with a couple of doctorate degrees. And it's the time management, how he's able to squeeze so much out of every second of the day, the efficiency that he's able to go about every day with, the routine that he establishes, not just for himself, but everyone on the staff and the players, recruiting, the level of evaluation and how important the evaluation, and that evaluation never stops, whether they're a sophomore in high school all the way up until, the day they sign with you, and then the constant evaluation of your roster. And then, the big one is that no matter how hard you think you're working, he's always going to one-up you. He's always going to walk in that staff meeting the next day, and he'd leave at 10 o'clock at night, and he'd come in and he'd have 12, 15 recruits that he's evaluated, written up, and then talk about half a book that he read that night. Like, when are you doing all this? But he was able to do it, and he really influenced everyone else around him to do the same. And if you didn't, you wouldn't make it.
So have you brought that to your game here, your coaching game to Georgia Tech? I mean, do you?
Yeah, I would say probably 90 to 95% of what we do here is probably 90% of what we do here is based off of either Nick or Coach OLeary.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. And then, did you see him? I mean, were you get a chance to run into him in Ireland?
Yeah,
Coach.
That was pretty cool to be able to see both of those guys. I mean, with Coach Saban working on game day and coming to practice on Thursday, Coach OLeary coming to practice on Friday. My only regret is they were never the same place at the same time, and I wasn't able to get a picture with both of them. So that's one thing. Two men that have influenced me so much in my day to day walk in this program, but also in my day to day life. Coach Saban with the mindset part of the game, how the mental conditioning that you have to have, not just for your team, but also for yourself individually, personally. But to see both of those guys there at that game, that was pretty cool.
Brent Key, head coach of Georgia Tech football here on the Rich Eisen Show. Run the ball, right? Those are the three words, run the ball. Obviously, we saw the game plan, $190 on the ground. And what were you able to see out of the Florida State defense that you're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to run the counter, and we're going to keep doing it until they stop it. What about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, anybody that watches us knows we're going to run outside zone and counter.
Right.
I mean, those are the two things that I've run my entire career as an offensive coach, as an O-line coach. And, I think they're great complements to each other. They allow you to, play with tempo, varying types of tempo, and still be able to execute the plays. So, finding the right formations, the right motions, the right shifts to go along with it, that's the important part. And anytime you go into a game one, you don't really know how they're going to play. You think you do. You have a feel for what you've seen on tape from previous seasons, but it's all about being the best you can be. And I thought we've worked really hard since January to become a stronger football team, a faster football team, to be in better shape. And we were able to go out, and we wanted to establish the line of scrimmage. I think we have a chance to have a pretty good offensive line around here. And for a week and a half of practice, I mean, those guys didn't gain an inch on the ground because of some of the additions we made on the defensive side of the ball, the development of some of the defensive linemen and linebackers, the new coaches we brought in on that side, and some of the acquisitions we made in the portal and through recruiting.
And so, what is it like on the sideline of a game like that, where you're noticing that your will is being imposed? And it's the third quarter, it's the fourth quarter. This is a game. You are in it. Forget about what people were thinking going in. Like, what happens on a sideline for you when that happens? Well,
it's the expectation every game that we go in and have that feeling.
Right.
For me personally, it feels pretty dang good. I mean, that's the feeling you want to have on the sideline. The best part about it, though, was there was 6 minutes and 33 seconds left on the clock, and we got the ball back for the last drive. And the way the game had gone to that point, that was our seventh series of the game. Florida State had 7 series. I knew we weren't going to get the ball back. There was no chance we were getting the ball back. So we basically had to go into 4-minute mode. And then they had, basically 4 timeouts. They had the 3 timeouts and the 2-minute timeout. So, and with 6:33 on the clock, that could be an eternity for some people. And we had to basically go into 4-minute mode on that drive to win the game. So it was a well-executed plan that we had, and we're able to get the win and now move on to this next week's game.
Yeah, I know, and it's moving on. I mean, how this has got to be, and again, the way you draw it up, you want to take your kids on the road, you want to take them to a spot where they're expanding their world. I'm sure This might have been the first European trip for a lot of your kids. You're trying to show them what they can do against an opponent that thought they should have been in the college football playoff last year. And you go ahead and you do what you did. I mean, what do you think? How do you follow this up? How do you bottle it? What do you do here?
Yeah, well, the big thing is, I mean, the game we played on Saturday was no different than any other game. For us in the locker room, for us as coaches, we were able to leave at 4:00 on Wednesday, fly through the night, get there on Thursday, and go about our normal Thursday. We didn't go sightseeing. We didn't go to castles. We didn't go to Guinness. We didn't go to Jameson. We didn't do any of those things. We were there to play a football game and to win a game. And that's no different than every game we play throughout the year. We learned early on in this journey how not to lose a game, right? We learned early on, then the next step became how to win games, right? Well, the step we are right now is how to consistently win, right? And in order to consistently win, you have to consistently prepare, you have to consistently practice, and you have to be consistent on a day-to-day basis, right? Our program and where we are in the program right now, right? We've had a lot of lessons learned in the past, and we have to take those lessons and use them in our day-to-day, because you can't do anything about yesterday except for learn from it, and you can't do anything about tomorrow but prepare for it. So was it a big game? It was a big game for Georgia Tech. It was a big game for the fans. It was a big game it was a big stage that the program was on. But for us in the locker room, it was the next game.
Who'd you hear from? Do you hear from anybody that we might know? Oh my
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot that you would know.
Who'd you hear from? I know we're just met, and I'm asking you to name drop. That's probably not I'm picking up your style here. That's not your style.
It's not.
But so then, how many text messages do you have on your phone when you grabbed it?
Yeah. So reception was a little spotty, in the stadium, and when you came back out, and even with roaming on, I think I had 458 when I got back to the room that night.
458.
Yeah, but you get back to the room, and we went straight into watching the game, getting it graded, getting it done. Because we wanted to be able to I had a team meeting at 7:15 the next morning before we left at 7:30, and I wanted to have that game closed out by the time we stepped off the plane yesterday back in Atlanta.
So you answered Roman Reigns' text first? Is that whose text you answered first?
I'm not going there, man.
Megatron? You didn't get Megatron's text first? I mean,
he was at the game. He was at the game, so.
That's cool. What do you? How do you employ Megatron with your kids? You know what I mean? How do you utilize him in any way, shape, or form, or how much is he willing to share of his Megatronness with your kids?
Yeah, no, look,
Coach.
Shoot, he's a Georgia Tech football player, no different than I am. Right? There's nothing asked from him. I want him to come here and be comfortable, to be welcomed, and to be able to come here and feel like he's at home still. So when these people come back, whether it's a guy like Calvin or a CEO of a Fortune 100 company, I mean, it's not coming here to feel like you're going to get hit up and asked for things. It's to be able to come back home.
Well, listen, congratulations again. I know it's just one win, and I know that you've got greater aspirations than just beating Florida State in the first game in Ireland. But I mean, it had to be pretty cool for you to have your team do that, look the way that it did, perform and execute the way that it did in week one of a season when Nick Saban and George OLeary are hanging out. That had to be pretty cool for you, man. That really did.
That was probably that was probably the added motivation that I wouldn't get my tail chewed off after the game by either one of them.
That's a terrific motivation, but it's pretty cool. And by the way, I know you didn't go sightseeing, but to have a guy named OLeary in Ireland, that had to open a door too, I imagine. That house.
Well, we played over there 10 years ago when we were at UCF, and we got beat by Penn State on the last play of the game on a field goal. So I'm sure for Coach it was a pretty redeeming thing to come back over 10 years later and see a team win on the last play of the game.
Pretty cool. Congratulations, Coach, on that W. Appreciate you taking my call. It's nice to meet you, and I look forward to more chats in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Go Jackets.
You got it. That's Brent Key, everybody. Go Jackets. Taking care of business. Running 190 yards on the ground.
That's great.
With the dub. On to the next for Georgia Tech. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.